Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is a maintenance video. I have behind me a 2007 Dodge Durango with a 5.7 liter Hemi engine, and it has a cooling problem. A friend of mine owns this vehicle. They were driving it back from Florida. Temperature gauge was going all over the place, and when they made it back here to Georgia, it was losing antifreeze out of the bottom of the radiator. So they added more fluid, hoped that would take care of it, but it didn't. And so I feel that it needs a new radiator. So I ordered a radiator off of Amazon. I'm going to open up the box and show you that radiator, and also some of the steps you can use in looking at that radiator to determine what you need to take loose to swap out yours. So let's take a look at the Durango and also the radiator. Before I get too far along, let me tell you, that mini split that I put in years ago, still doing its job. Okay, so here's the vehicle. Again, 5.7 liter engine, and yeah, I parked it in here last night to keep it cool, and it's been, I had a catch pan under it, but I had it in two different locations. There were two different leaks, so there was one leak over here and one leak over there. I had it under this to capture what I could, but I just moved it to that side, and you can still see it dripping. So in order to get into this, what I'll have to do is remove this plastic cover, disconnect some hoses, obviously, remove probably some ductwork and shrouding and different things to get access as much as I can. Of course, this isn't automatic, so there will be transmission lines. So all that stuff will have to come loose. I'll probably do most of that on a time lapse and just show you the process. So over here is the radiator in the box. I'll open that up and we'll take a look at it as well. Okay, so I thought I heard a little noise. What it is, these carriers on either side of the radiator are just pressed on. They're not glued or molded together. It's kind of just snapped together around the radiator. So that looks pretty good. Has the drain in place. It did have two rubber caps. This one is still in place. The other one fell off whenever I pulled it out of the package. And we've got several things I want to show you on this that will help you possibly when it comes time to change out yours if you decide to do so. Okay, so a few things here. Upper water neck, you can see it's angled back to what would be the driver's side. You've got a couple of posts up here, so I'm assuming there's some sort of bushing or bracket that goes on top of that. There's a hole on this side. Again, we'll have to look at that. Probably well, I'm not sure what that may be, because you've got another channel here and of course your overflow. A lot of times they have these kind of channels or cutouts for the overflow hose to go through. I don't know the configuration just yet, so we'll have to look for what this does. Also, you've got a mount post, so this is nice. It slides down into the bracket that holds it. There's another one over here. And then also you have these little channels, and that is probably where the shroud slides in and sits in place. And I thought most radiators that I've seen have a reservoir or a attachment point, let's say, for your transmission lines. So this vehicle, if we're in luck, the transmission lines are separate. We don't have to worry about those. There's also some slots here, another post sticking out there. So let me flip it over and we'll look at the other side, see if there's anything significant. So on this side, I don't really see anything that should come into play. We've got these four post square blocks sticking up. I'm not sure if a bolt turns into those or not. I hope not, because that's on the front side of the radiator. And that's about it. There's a little slot here, maybe something that interacts with that. Here's what the side pieces. Apparently there's some bolts that hold it on the upper side, but on the bottom side they probably just have a hook or something that it snaps into. That's why it can move. Yeah, I don't see anything over there either. So I'm going to get started taking out the radiator that's in the vehicle, and part of that process is to open up the drain valve and let the fluid come out. So that will be on the driver's side based on the water neck, and I'll get that fluid out and continue on from there. Alright, so I have the antifreeze draining, or what's left of the antifreeze, because it's mostly water, draining out, and I need to remove these little push pins up here on top. You can use a tool like this, body shop tool, or basic body tools, let's say, and you work these out, and it may take both of them together. Sometimes you have to just kind of work your way underneath them, and I'm trying to do this with my left hand, so let me just do this on time lapse and I'll get this out of the way. Now with that off, we can really get a look at what holds everything in place. So as I said earlier about the overflow, sure enough it does go through those channels that I talked about, comes over here and goes to the tank. Then there's a bracket here, and that's where those upper posts are. So that bracket has to come off. That also supports this AC condenser, but that's irrelevant at this point. We just need to worry about the radiator. Upper radiator hose, and then it appears there is one bolt right there, and I'll check on the radiator, the new one as well. So that one bolt may be all that holds the shroud to this. And what I mean by that is that bolt is upper on the driver's side, and then down below you have the two hooks, and then on this side, that's where the post right there comes through that side hole. So that should be pretty decent to get apart. I still plan to probably pull at least part of the ducting off to get out of the way, this air box up here in particular, and just kind of give me some space. And of course the upper radiator hose, you'll have to take a pair of I usually use like needle nose pliers and squeeze that together, slide it back on the hose. Same way on the bottom. They do make a tool for that in particular that is actually a clamp. We used to have one at the shop. It has a cable piece on it. They're not cheap. The tool itself from Mac Tools is well over $100, but if you're doing this as a regular type of thing, pretty handy to have those. You can just, you've got like a handle you squeeze and it draws these two together and you can easily move it around. So I'll just work on getting these other pieces loose and we'll go on from there. And again, as I was saying, these are the hooks down here at the bottom for the shroud, and then that's where the single bolt is, and that's the side post. So I went to remove this bracket and I realized there's a bolt down here. You see it sticking out right there. That was a 10 millimeter. So got that out of the way. Then I started thinking, can I do this without taking this upper ductwork off? And probably not. The shroud is going to have to come up so that it comes out of those hooks. And so I need to go ahead and take this all loose. There's 3 clips on the side of this cover, one there, and one in the back. That'll come loose. I loosened up that clamp, so I'll pry that off of the intake duct, and hopefully everything else comes out of the way. This upper hose just presses into that port, or onto that port, so not a big deal there. And that should take care of the ductwork. Another thing I noticed real quick here, underneath this bracket, this, I believe it's a transmission cooler by the looks of it, that slides into that cutout there that's on the radiator. And as I'm looking at it, I think that it's hard to show you from this angle, but way down there's 2 bolts, and I'm going to assume that those are the ones that we talked about with the square bosses on the front of the radiator, the new one. I'm not sure which is which. Actually, there's 4. I can see a 4th one down there now, right there. Try to get the light to light it up. So there's 1, 2, 3, and the 4th one is right there. So that's what those bosses are for on the radiator. They don't have like an insert, so you just, I guess you cut the threads in whenever you turn the bolts. So something else to consider whenever you're working on this. Okay, for the next part of this video, I'm going under the vehicle. Now, I will tell you that there is a little chin spoiler right here that's held on with 10mm bolts. I removed it just so you could see easier what I was doing. And also, if you don't want to lift this car up and crawl underneath it, it helps to gain access to these bolts. So if you look through this front opening here in the bumper cover, you can see those bolts. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it appears that those are a 13mm. So basically, if I just come underneath here, hopefully the light doesn't block too much. If I come underneath and just use a 13, I should be able to take these out. Now, of course, I'm trying to do this with my left hand while I'm filming, so I'll have to get those out of the way. There's also this bolt right here, which I think that's that little post we talked about on the housing, and that is holding the transmission lines. So that bolt will have to come out, and those lines go straight up into the transmission cooler. This bolt holds, I'm assuming, either power steering or I'm going to say power steering cooler by the size of the lines. So I'm going to that bolt has to come out, and of course this clamp has to come off. So again, squeeze that. Be cautious, you might have some fluid coming out of that. Even though I've drained most of it, it's still dripping. Also, the drain plug here, normally it's kind of a wing nut. This was actually like a bolt head, so I had to put, I don't know what size it was, I used a crescent wrench to turn that loose so that it would drain out. So I'll get these bolts out of the way and get this hose off, and I should be able to lift it out, I think. Okay, so on the side of the radiator there's a flap that is kind of a deflector, and I can see it's kind of caught up in the front section here. So what I'll have to do is take off the push pins and leave the flap behind. Okay. The little post on the transmission cooler, or the bracket there, you have to get around those. And this could take some maneuvering. It looks like there's a bracket piece that sticks out that is the post mount on the passenger side, or on the driver's side. So I'm referring to this. This is your mount, and as I lift up on it, I can get some light over here. Find something metal or steel that I can attach the lamp to. So it's behind, where's it? There it is. It's down there. It's underneath the AC condenser. So I may have to loosen up something and wiggle it around in order to get that out. I don't know. I don't think it would go down. I don't think there's enough clearance for that. Let me see what I can figure out, and I'll show you what I end up with. I think I figured it out. We'll see. I took the airbox out, and what that's going to allow me to do is move the radiator to the passenger side and hopefully be able to lift it up and out. Hopefully. Oh, you know what? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's think about this. Those side pieces come off. Ding, ding, ding. The side pieces come off. Didn't even think about it till just now. Can't take it out. Take the radiator apart. Maybe that's why that one still moves around on the side. Just got to be smarter than the equipment. Or the engineers. But maybe this is what they had in mind. I don't know. Haha. Alright. Take that off. Come on. There she goes. There she goes. That's the way to do it. I took that side piece loose. Came right off. Who knew? Okay. Normally I give engineers a hard time, but if that's how it's designed to do that, that's actually a pretty decent idea. Aside from taking, instead of taking off the AC condenser or trying to get that stuff out of the way, just take off the pieces that are fighting with you. So, in hindsight, now that I have thought it over a minute, if I had taken both pieces off, I could have left the little rubber flap that was fighting with me on the inside here. I could have left the assembly in there and just taken it off of the new radiator and not had to mess with those those plastic push pins. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, at this point what you need to do is transfer over any of these bushings. So you got these two rubber bushings here. There's another one down here on this side panel on the passenger side. Any of those sort of things you need to transfer over. I think that's the only ones. I did want to look at this. I found that this radiator had some really bad corrosion right there. And also, it was starting to corrode down in the corners. So definitely needed to be replaced. There's some really bad corrosion. So, radiator was shot, and thankfully they didn't have any serious overheating problems. They were able to get it home safely. But now I'll get this swapped out, and they should be good to go. Before I finish up, you now have an opportunity to change out that crusty air filter. So go ahead and do that as well. Okay, everything is back together. I make sure that I check all of the hardware. Anywhere that I put a bolt or tightened a screw or a valve or anything, I always make sure I put my hand on those and that I identify that I made those tight. You don't want to come back later and go, oh, I forgot to this or that. So I put everything together. I did change the air filter, and I've added antifreeze to it. And now what I will do, I will take it for a drive, basically. I want it to get up to temperature and make sure that the fluid cycles through everything. You can do that by driving around, turning your heater on, and feeling the heat come into the vehicle. And of course, whenever you're checking this fluid level, you don't want to open this up when it's hot. So anytime you're doing this, take your hand and grab the upper radiator hose. You can feel heat, but also you can squeeze it. And if you can compress it, that means there's no pressure, not enough pressure that it's going to cause a problem. You should be able to squeeze it pretty easily. This one, I can just grab it, kind of squeeze it together with my hand, and recognize that there's not pressure on the hose. So once you do that, then you can take the cap off and verify the fluid level. I've also added fluid to the reservoir on the side, and basically that's it. You know, it wasn't too complicated once I started really looking at how they put it together, right? And got the side piece swapped out and took care of all of that. Everything else went together seemingly well. I still have to put the chin spoiler on back in place and take it for a test drive and make sure that the fluid levels are correct. So hopefully you got something out of this video. If not, nothing else, I hope you got some entertainment, and maybe it'll help you with your project or something that you're going to work on soon. So if you would, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up. Let me know what you think about this video, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.